Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to everyone. Today, my group and I will be presenting about inflation in Malaysia and how it affects our daily lives. We will discuss the impact of inflation on individuals, society, and the overall standard of living, as well as explore several government and NGO policy measures that aim to control the rising inflation in our country. Let's begin with an overview of what inflation really means and why it is important to understand.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Qurratu Aini binti Muhammad Nasrum, and now I will explain my part for question 1 in this presentation. So the question is define inflation and describe main types of inflation. Support your explanation with relevant examples from cited articles and current economic issues. So inflation is persistent and sustained increase in aggregate or average price level of goods and services in economy. So we have three types of inflation. The first one is demand pull inflation. It occurs when aggregate demand exceeds aggregate supplies. Causes of demand pull inflation are increased consumer spending and government spending. For example, the implementation of minimum wage in budget 2025 increase the household income, which leads to higher consumption and demand. For number 2, we have cost push inflation. The definition of cost push inflation occurs when increase in cost of production, decrease in aggregate supplies, resulting price increase. Causes of cost push inflation, I will explain two. The first one is increase in wage that cause business to raise output price to cover the higher labor costs. And next is increase in import price, such as import raw materials, intermediate goods, or final goods and services. For example, the diesel price rose by 20.1% and vehicle insurance increased by 0.8% in Q3 2024. These examples are cost-related increase passed on to the consumers. The third one is monetary inflation. Definition of monetary inflation is expansion of money supply. We have two: expansionary fiscal policy and expansionary monetary policy. The causes of monetary inflations, low interest rates and excessive money printing. For monetary inflation, the example is the government moved to increase spending under budget 2025 through cash assistance, subsidies and higher minimum wage that inject more money into the economy and increase the money supply.
So we move to the next question, which is question 2. How does the government get price data of the consumer price index CPI to measure inflation? First is conducting monthly price surveys. DOSM collect price of goods and services from selected outlets nationwide such as supermarket, market, online platform and service providers. Data is collected from various locations, urban and rural, to reflect real consumer spending patterns. So we move to the next, which is monitoring a fixed basket of goods and services. The CPI is based on a basket of commonly purchased items such as food, housing, transportation, healthcare, and education. This basket includes over 500 items chosen based on consumers' spending habits. So we move to the next slide. Here we have comparing price changes over time. The price collected are compared to those from a base year to determine percentage changes in cost of living. These changes reflect inflation or deflation. Last but not least, using digital and field collection methods, price data is gathered through both online data scraping, official receipt, and physical field visit to store.
Inflation refers to the general increase in the price of goods and services over time. When inflation occurs, the purchasing power of money decreases, which affect individuals, society's welfare, and the overall standard of living. Based on the article, Malaysia's inflation is projected to average between 2.0% to 3.5% in 2025. Several factors contribute to this, including domestic policy measures like RON 95, fuel subsidies, and the sale and service tax (SST), and global economic uncertainties. Now, let's move on to impact on individuals, society welfare, and standard of living. For individuals, inflation directly affects their cost of living. When price of essential goods such as diesel, which saw a 20.1% increase, and vehicle insurance 0.8% go up, people have to spend more on transportation and insurance, leaving less money for other necessities. Even though food and beverages only increased by 1.6%, these small increases can add up and burden low and middle income groups. In turn, their ability to save money or spend on other important needs like healthcare and education is reduced. Next, society as a whole also suffers when inflation is high. It can increase income inequality because not everyone's wages increase at the same rate as price. However, the article mentioned that the minimum wage implementation under Budget 2025 aims to support private consumption. While this can help to some extent, Bank Negara Malaysia (BNM) noted that the impact on inflation is limited, as past increase in minimum wage had a small impact on inflation. Without proper enforcement and control, vulnerable groups may still be at risk. Lastly, a higher inflation rate can lead to a lower standard of living, especially if wage growth does not match the rate of price increases. People may have to cut back on quality food, health services, or education expenses. In the long term, this could affect the nation's productivity and overall economic stability. However, the article also highlights that effective government measures such as diesel subsidies, rationalisation, and economic policy enforcement are in the place to minimize the cost impact on businesses and reduce inflation pressure.
For question 4, the supporting data explain the policy measures by government agency or NGOs that could be effective to control rising inflation in Malaysia. The first point is fuel subsidy control, RON 95. For the policy, government provide targeted fuel subsidies, especially for RON 95, to ease the impact of rising global oil price on consumers. So next, we have supporting data. It is a part of domestic policy tools. It helps to keep the inflation to maintain at 1.9%. And the last one, why it works, because of to keep the petrol price affordable, transportation and logistic costs remain stable. It helps to prevent chain reaction of price hikes in goods and services.
Next, government raised the minimum wage in Budget 2025. One of the policy measures taken by the government to control inflation is the increase in minimum wage, as announced in Budget 2025, which aim to raise the disposable income of the people, especially those in the lower income groups, without causing a significant rise in inflation, as stated by the Governor of Bank Negara Malaysia (BNM), thereby helping nation cope in the rising cost of living.
So for the last point is price control on essential goods. Policy, government set ceiling price for essential goods. To support the data, according to the KPDN, over 10 essential items are price controlled, especially during festive season and inflationary periods. Why it works? Controlling the price of basic necessities and help reduce inflationary pressure on low and middle income households, especially when market price surge.
For conclusion, inflation can affect Malaysia's economy, but with effective measures such as fuel subsidies, minimum wage and so on can help to keep it under control. With all of these efforts, it helps to balance economic growth and price stability. And lastly, it is the key to manage inflation in the future.